All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So last Friday, Major League Baseball Players Association Executive Director Tony Clark says that he expects the team owners to lock out the players when the current CBA expires in December of 2026. Now, the most recent lockout by the owners took place in December 2021, which lasted until March of 2022. And it fortunately did not affect the season as each team was still able to play 162 games and we got a full postseason. But that work stoppage in 1994 is still fresh in some people's minds as it resulted in no World Series that year, as well as a delayed start to the 1995 season and a 144 game regular season. And the owners once again appear to be dug in as right now it appears that their biggest issue is going to definitely be that they want a salary cap due to the widening gap between the teams who are willing to spend and those who are not. You look at the Los Angeles Dodgers with the start of a new season right around the corner. Dodgers' current payroll of $321 million by itself is more than the bottom five teams in MLB this season combined as far as team payrolls go. Okay. You can say what you want about this, but in my opinion, the timing of this is very bad for baseball because I really feel that the sport is teetering in some senses. And I say this because, okay, we just heard the news recently about MLB walking away from their television deal with ESPN after this season. And of course, a big reason for that by MLB is that they're citing that they need more and better coverage of their sport. I totally agree with that. Okay. But as you're going out there trying to fish for a new deal, if you're Major League Baseball, how are you going to sell yourself to another network or possibly a streaming platform or both, or multiple streaming platforms or multiple networks? And then there's talks about a potential lockout looming, okay, that is definitely or could definitely affect things if there is a work stoppage. Cole, what's going on? You're saying I remember the 94 strike. I was 12. I actually know someone who thinks that a strike and a lockout are the same thing. Well, I'll tell you what, my man, I was in my teen years during that 94 strike. And in some aspects, I feel like the game has not recovered because I still know people who have not gone back to baseball after that lockout. And you figure that was more than 30 years ago now. All right. And with that said, some of the voices in the room as far as team owners have changed. And of course, if the players aren't the same, the people who are representing the players aren't the same. It's one of those where a lot of people don't understand the ramifications of that thing. For one instance, there are some people who felt like, okay, we were going to get Yankees exposed in the World Series that year, possibly. All right. But the Montreal franchise, in my opinion, never recovered from that because that Expos team that year was loaded. Okay. You think about the race for 60 home runs that year or to break Roger Maris's record of 62 that year. Matt Williams was in the clubhouse, the leader in the clubhouse, if you will, as far as possibly doing that. And I remember their baseball wasn't welcomed back with open arms after that. And of course, I know, you know, you can say what you want, but the long ball, the McGuire Sosa run of 98 really did a lot to ignite the sport. But I'm also going to say this in that time, the NFL and the NBA got more momentum and they have not looked back. And at the end of the day, these two leagues have put MLB in the rearview mirror. I don't think Major League Baseball can afford for something like this to happen again. Why? Because you're already losing steam to these leagues. And I say it like this: when opening day comes down in about a couple of weeks, we've got a situation where it's more people are going to be talking about basketball between the NCAA tournament, the end of the regular season in the NBA, and then also you're going to have people talking about the offseason in the NFL, free agency, trades, the draft. Okay, we just finished up the scouting combine, and then once you go to the end of the regular season, stretch run time for Major League Baseball, where all eyes should be on trying to get to the postseason. There's a lot of people who are still focusing on the start of the football season. And once your postseason runs around, there's people who are focusing as well on the beginning of the NBA season. So I really don't think that Major League Baseball can really afford to do this. Cole, you're also saying you'd love to see the Expos come back once MLB expands to 32 teams. Well, I definitely would. And I know some people are going to agree with what I'm about to say, and some people might disagree. I love to see them put another team back in the Bay Area, and whatever team that's in Vegas, let them give them a new name, bring all of that stuff back to the A's. Okay, that's just my personal opinion. I know that the A's originally didn't start in Oakland, but nonetheless, a lot of their history is there. But with that said, I don't think that MLB is really going about this right, because you need to go out there and get yourself a new television deal. You need to go out there and market your product and do a better job of it. A lockout, especially if it's a lockout where you're talking about missing games, that ain't going to help your situation. All right. And you look at the bulk of the owners around baseball right now, they don't want to spend freely. You have guys like the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, they're willing to do that, and a couple of other teams. But it also does not help the case of the big market teams. When you've got a big market team like the Chicago White Sox, who are 28th in spending in team payroll coming into this season. Okay, the Jerry Reinsdorf led White Sox. Chicago is the second biggest media market in the United States, and the only two teams who are slated to have smaller payrolls than the White Sox for this season, the A's and the Miami Marlins. Okay, so that just gives you an idea of where things are in there, and that's why a lot of team owners like Jerry Reinsdorf. Why? Because he's a big market owner who does not want to spend money. A lot of these guys don't like your Steve Cohens. They don't like the Stan Castons of the Dodgers and such, because they're going out there and they're willing to spend money. When George Steinbrenner walked this earth, okay, he was not um, liked by a lot of other MLB team owners. Why? Because George Steinbrenner was the boss, but George Steinbrenner also wanted to spend the dollar. Okay. But nonetheless, with this talk about a potential lockout, it's setting up for a matchup between clueless Rob Manfred, MLB's commissioner, and of course the head of the MLBPA, and that is one Tony Clark. I've never been a fan of Rob Manfred, okay? And at the same time, Tony Clark ain't no Marvin Miller either. So this is not going to be pretty, in my opinion. What are the chances of there being a work stoppage in 2026? I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, but I think it's a bigger and better possibility than what we saw a couple of years ago. Because I think this time around the owners probably could be, and more than likely will be, a little bit more dug in on this whole salary cap notion. There are some people who feel that Major League Baseball should go to a salary cap. Some people might think that the luxury tax is outdated. Some people just are not a fan of the luxury tax. Well, I'll tell you like this: the luxury tax is there, and the smaller market teams continue to get fat off of that. And some teams, have even been accused of straight up and down just pocketing the money. Okay. But the bottom line is, some of these guys don't want to spend. They want to hide behind, oh, they need a stadium, oh, they need this, they need that. And they still turn around and they don't spend money. And then at the end of the day, who are they doing the biggest disservice to? It's the fans. Okay. Because at the end of the day, no team owner in professional sports is in there and not making money. Okay. It's just a matter of whether they want to go out there and spend more money. Bottom line is this: whether your team wins 50 games during an MLB season or wins 100 games during an MLB season, you as an owner are still making money. And at the end of the day, that's all that most of them care about. The guys, for the most part, who care about the winning are the fans. And of course, some of them go out there, and I'm not trying to knock the fans on this, don't get me wrong, okay? But you go out there and you cheer for teams who have lackluster owners who simply don't care, and they hang out their fans and the fan experience along with it. They basically hang people out to dry, and it's unfortunate. You know, give the sport more Steve Cohen's, give the sport or sports period more Mark Cubans, people like that who want to go out there and put their team, uh, first, put their team and give their team the best opportunity to go out there and win and compete on a yearly basis. Sports needs more of that. Cole, you're saying the main reason the salary cap wouldn't work in baseball is the fact that there's a farm system. Listen, that right there is a part of it. I mean, you think about it. Um, I just think the salary cap by the owners is just another excuse for them to go out there and not spend money. And I'll tell you like this: salary cap or not, the teams that want to spend and want to win, they're going to go out there and figure out workarounds, and they're going to figure out ways to get it done. You look at the Los Angeles Dodgers right now, huge payroll. Okay. But with that said, the fact that Shohei deferred so much money has given them a lot of wiggle room. And there's other guys as well who have given them wiggle room as well by deferring money. And guess what? The Dodgers are still going out there and signing guys. And the Dodgers heading into this season are loaded. They might be more loaded from top to bottom in their lineup and in their starting rotation than they were last season. Okay. But a team like the Dodgers wants to win. They want to be in that mix every single year, and they're going to find a way to get it done, salary cap or not. Okay, that's the bottom line. TFX, what's going on? You're saying this is worrying, man. Baseball is a necessity in the summer when I'm grilling. Listen, I totally agree. And I think this is why MLB could potentially be heading down a slippery slope here because the summertime is less and less becoming that exclusive province of baseball because you think about it, the NBA finals and the NBA playoffs as a whole, they go well into the month of June. And now when you think about the 4th of July from a sports perspective, you don't think about the 4th of July being about baseball as much anymore. Why? It's the start of free agency in the NBA. And of course, with the start of free agency in the NBA, there's a lot of player movement, whether it's trades, whether it's free agency, you name it. And not only that, for the month of July, before you blink, we're looking at the start of training camps around the National Football League. So the summer is no longer the exclusive province of baseball. So they can flirt with this all that they want to. But at the end of the day, if they roll the dice, it might come back snake eyes. That's all I'm saying. All right. But nonetheless, I think there is a possible chance this time around of there being a work stoppage because I think that the owners are really going to be dug in on this whole salary cap thing. That's just my system, reasoning for it. The luxury tax system, I feel, is not broken. The problem is, I think the room of owners and you have more small market owners than you have big market owners. And I think some of those smaller market owners have more leverage. And because of that, they have a bigger strength in numbers in comparison to the big market owners. And they're going to go in there and say, hey, we are the ones that are affected the most. And we need to find a system that is going to help us out. But like I always say with salary caps and with luxury tax, and I think salary cap aside, I think the biggest issue for Major League Baseball, there needs to be a floor as far as how much the teams have to go out there and spend. Okay, because I think some of these teams go out there and have milked the system. You look at the Miami Marlins, okay, when they needed a new stadium, they went out there and spent money. But what happened as soon as the Marlins got that new stadium? They dump salary left and right, and they have continuously, once again, been one of the MLB's lowest spending teams each and every year. And you know who's about to find that out the hard way first and foremost? The city of Las Vegas, because now that the A's have left Oakland, they're trying to sucker people, like showing that they're willing to spend, and they're going to spend a little bit and maybe a little bit more until they get to Vegas and they get their stadium. And guess what? They're going to be right back to the bottom. This is what some of these small market owners are doing because they don't care. It's a con game, it's a shell game, and people are going to fall for it. But at the end of the day, there are some small market teams and small market owners that do want to go out there and win. And like I said, there's been workarounds for some of the bigger market clubs that want to go out there and win and spend money. You have it with some of the smaller market organizations as well. What have they been doing? They've been locking up their youngsters to long-term deals when they're like 21 or 22 years old, giving them 12, 13, 14-year deals. Granted, they might not see all of that deal with that specific team, but guess what? At the end of the day, they're still getting the bulk of their prime years. And if you give a kid a 12-year deal for about 250, 260 million dollars, more than likely he's going to take it because he's not going to see that type of money anytime soon. So you give him that, you don't have to worry about betting against yourself, so to speak, in free agency, and you get something done. Why? Because now you have a box office draw that people want to see. Okay, it's not a situation like the Rays where you have a new roster every 2 or 3 years. Basically, what it's been with the Oakland A's. I'm still saying Oakland A's for about the last 20 years or so. Okay, so you're giving them something to look forward to. You look at what Kansas City recently did with Bobby Witt Jr., San Diego did with Fernando Tatis Jr., and then, of course, the Seattle Mariners, another example with Julio Rodriguez. This is what you got to do. You have to find ways to get creative if you want to win. Some people don't want to do that. Some people just simply want to go out there and be lazy. But at the end of the day, I think the MLB and the Players Association, they're going to butt heads because I don't think that there's a real sense of urgency on this right now because December 2026, it's a long ways away, but it's not a long ways away. We're talking about a year and a half, okay? A lot can happen between now and then, but I still think there needs to be a slight sense of urgency because you don't want to get to that close point. However, negotiations are not going to start anytime soon, okay? And even at this point, it sounds like both sides are very far apart. These things usually get done when everybody gets desperate. And of course, they get more desperate when they get closer to possibly losing games, losing paychecks if you're a player. And of course, from the owner's standpoint, losing money at the park or whatever, from concessions, parking, merchandising, all of that stuff. But nonetheless, I think there is a very real possibility. I also think that it's probably going to be a scenario like it is for most cases, regardless of the sport. Neither side is going to get fully what they want, but they have to find compromise. They have to find strong points. You look at the spending, like I said, of the Dodgers. Also, you look at the Mets getting a guy like Juan Soto for his record $765 million deal. A contract like that basically eliminates the bulk of the league from going out there and talking to a guy like that. And for the most part, any big name free agents that are out there, there's only like probably a little bit more than a handful of teams that are going to go out there and pursue these guys. The Dodgers are going to be in that mix usually. The Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays, maybe the Texas Rangers. Okay. But not a lot of teams are going to go out there and make these moves. And again, like I said, when you've got big market teams like the White Sox and even the Cubs who have not gone out there and spent money. I know the Cubs heading into this season are 12th in payroll. But, I think back to when the Cubs won that World Series back in 2016. Okay. You had a scenario where it looked like they had their infield for the next 10 years. And the fact that Anthony Rizzo didn't finish his career in the Cubs uniform, and of course, I don't know what has happened to Chris Bryant since he burst onto the scene as a rookie in 2015. The whole stuff with Addison Russell, that was way off, as far as dealing with off the field issues. And then, of course, Javi Baez, he went completely south. But nonetheless, I felt that Rizzo should have been a lifer with the Cubs. And then you have a situation like we saw with the Boston Red Sox where they trade a guy like Mookie Betts in the prime of his career, and I thought that was frightening, and I thought that was a bad look for baseball when you've got big market clubs like the Red Sox and the Cubs that are trading away all-star and MVP caliber players in the primes of their careers. Okay. And the Cubs, for the most part, are another one. They've been operating like a small market team as well. Not a good look for baseball. You're saying this Dodger deferred money thing, TFX, is got to come back and bite them at some point. I'll tell you like this: the Dodgers are making money hand over fist, and what they have to pay going down the pike, I think, is going to be a drop in the bucket to them, and they're just going to find a way to stay ahead of the grain because historically, the Dodgers organization, they have been known as far as drafting and developing talent, and I guarantee you, they're going to have some more kids, coming up in their system. And at the end of the day, they just continue to go out there and spend money. Chavez Ravine is consistently filled throughout the summer and, of course, the postseason. And I think it helps things now that they just won a World Series again. Okay. So Dodger Stadium is going to be and continue to be the place to be, or one of the places to be in Los Angeles. So the Dodgers organization is going to continue to hemorrhage cash. You're saying, yeah, true, easy come, easy go for them. It's kind of like, they walk around with that money like in a petty cash fund. That's just the way that they deal with things. I think the Mets are getting to that point under the watch of Steve Cohen. The Yankees, they definitely spend too. I mean, you think about the contracts of the likes of Aaron Judge and, of course, Garrett Cole come to mind. Giancarlo Stanton has a hefty deal. And then, of course, the likes of Max Fried, who got that big deal this offseason. So, of course, those are the teams that are always going to be at the forefront. And those are the teams that the smaller market clubs always frown upon. But at the end of the day, you've got to go out there and be creative. You look at the Milwaukee Brewers, one of the smaller market teams in baseball, but the Brewers still go out there and compete each and every year. They are consistently one of the top teams in the National League Central. You think about the Tampa Bay Rays and how they found the system to go out there and compete in that ultra tough American League East. If you have a determination to go out there and get it done, you'll get it done. But some people are just looking for an excuse and a cop out, in my opinion. You're asking me who's playing third in Boston? I'm not sure. I'll tell you that much right now because you got Bregman, you got Devers, and Devers' lack of play at third base is why the Red Sox went out there and got Bregman in the first place. But that's a whole nother story. But nonetheless, I think this is a battle that I think people need to pay attention to more because you really don't pay attention to these things until games are lost. And I think you have a generation of owners and a generation of players who really they've heard about it, and seen about it on television. But some of them, especially from the player standpoint, they don't understand what 94 meant. And of course, these team owners, most of them weren't around as far as being owners then. So they don't understand the ramifications as well. And of course, the commissioner, the current commissioner, he wasn't around for that either. So hopefully, cooler heads will prevail. I don't think it's going to be the case. MLB, they have some issues. They've got to find a new media deal. And they really, like I said, cannot afford another lockout. I think a lockout would only further widen the gap for MLB as they're trying to keep up with the likes of the NFL and the NBA and other leagues. But nonetheless, this is when the true leadership or lack thereof of baseball, and I'm just using that term lightly, but nonetheless, this is when their leadership really needs to step to the forefront. They can't afford another lockout. But at the end of the day, I think the egos in the room might get in the way of that happening. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Please, if you like what you heard and saw on this podcast, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. It's always much appreciated. As always, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. Cole, thanks so much for chiming in. I hope that 2026, from a baseball standpoint, does not take you back to your youth and that 94 strike. Like I said, I was right there with you. I was in my teen years at the time. So hopefully that ain't going to be the case. TFX, as always, it was a pleasure. And I tell you what, baseball or no baseball, if you're grilling in the summertime, I'm there, my man. That's the bottom line. But once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I'm signing off and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.